I got into baking when I was a little kid. I really enjoyed watching Food Network with my grandma on the couch, and that was kind of how I got introduced to baking and cooking in general. But it really wasn't until college where I was finding ways to de-stress from engineering school, and baking kind of became my hobby in the evenings and on the weekends. I was an engineer, but I decided to leave that career behind and open a bakery, and I haven't looked back. Back in 2017, I decided to start a side business called Milk and Honey, and it started as a way to fund a homeless ministry that my husband and I were doing on the weekends. And really, it was my friends knowing that I really enjoyed baking and asked me to make some cakes for their events. And that's kind of how it grew from there, was this kind of organic friend and referral business that I started making cakes for people on the side while I was still working. And over time, I was able to feel more comfortable making the switch to doing the bakery full-time about in 2019. As I got bigger, I decided to start doing pop-ups, and I did a pop-up in downtown Ann Arbor for about 6 months, where it was every single weekend on Saturdays, and that garnered a lot of interest. At that point, that was when I decided, okay, I think I feel like I have enough of this confidence that I decided to make the switch to working at the bakery full time. I ended up finding this location in Milan, Michigan. And that was really the biggest factor of being able to work out of my own space. The switch from Milk and Honey to Q Bakehouse was a organic one that kind of spanned over a year. I found this really great place on the west side of Ann Arbor, and that was where I was like, okay, well, this space has a whole retail storefront area and room for a kitchen in the basement. At the same time, I was also discovering a lot about myself personally, making food for my family that was from my Taiwanese and Chinese heritage. All of that coming together was me thinking it was time to change the business to something new and kind of giving it a refresh. And so Q Bakehouse and Market is born out of Milk and Honey, but it is also different. It is including a lot more Asian-inspired pastries in terms of flavors and techniques, and it also includes savory options on top of that. This is where we will likely have some bar seating, so we'll have a wooden table that goes across the windows with bar stools. So Q Bakehouse and Market, it comes from the letter Q, which is actually a word and a Taiwanese culinary term that means springy or bouncy, kind of that chewy texture that you get from boba or mochi. I wanted the name Q to be identifiable with both Asian-speaking and English-speaking people. There are a lot of challenges with opening a retail storefront for a small business, one of them being the waiting. It feels like the wait lasts forever, and the permitting process is a long one, and we ran into a lot of issues with the city, and so it took about 2.5 months to even get the permits to be able to start construction, which really put us behind. And I actually have to pay rent right now on the space, even though it's non-operational. And that financially, obviously, is really challenging after also putting in a lot of capital into the build out. And so I think waiting is a big one. Finances is a big one too, just because we're operating right now. We're paying all of our expenses while not being able to bring in any sales. So unfortunately, like the cost of the actual build out itself is just climbing higher and higher as more and more things are getting added, and different issues that came up with the city required us to add more things to the list as well. I am actually sitting in my friend's bakery and kitchen right now because I don't have a space to work out of. And so in order to keep my business relevant and being able to sell still, I have to rent a different kitchen and operate out of here in the meantime. So in the interim, before we open, we've been doing little pop-ups and pre-order pickups here and there, and that's usually every couple to few weeks that we'll host one. And it's been a way for us to continue to get some sales in the interim while also generating interest, trying to get our name out there. I can't really necessarily pinpoint exactly what about baking I love so much. I do think it's a mix of a lot of things. It's partially the joy that it brings people. I feel like you can't ever go wrong bringing somebody a baked good, even if it's not really the best baked good. If you come to a party or an office with a box of something, even from the store, people will instantly be happier. It makes their day.
Watch One Detroit, Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.